everyone, and welcome back to the Happy Investor podcast. And today I'm joined by Sandra Garlick. Welcome. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. And thank you for the invitation.
It's very nice to see you. So can you do a bit of an intro for our listeners of who you are and what you've been up to bring you to today?
Oh, wow. How long have we got? I'll try and give you the short version. So right now, I support people with their visibility strategy, and I help people to find their stories and share them on stages and create a lot of opportunities for people to speak on my stages, because I help to amplify them and to share who they really are, to inspire others. And I think my mission is to create more women in business role models so that others can be inspired and realize that somebody else has trod the steps before them and they just need to take that first step.
Yes, I love that. I always say to people, you can't be what you can't see.
Yeah.
And that definitely means women in male-dominated industries and roles.
Yeah.
So why, Sandra? How did you get into this?
Well, I was, after walking out of my marriage and qualifying as a solicitor, as a single mum, I decided I needed a proper job, a profession, that I could support my boys really and give them the opportunities that they wanted. I qualified as solicitor. I'll give you the short version. I think I was always unemployable.
Yeah.
Uh, and I always challenged the status quo, and I always found myself in situations far above where I should have been. And I think because I went into the profession as a mature entrant, they saw that I got commercial awareness, and they'd send me out to client meetings, and I'd say, we can do this and we can do that, and let's host this, and let's do a seminar, let's do a presentation, let's run a conference. And I always found myself organizing those things and doing a lot of speaking. I was media trained. And I just naturally fell into those spaces, but there was a ceiling. There was always a ceiling. And I think, it was very corporate. I was working in one of the top 10 firms in the world. So, late nights, long hours were expected.
Mm.
I kept being sent away on these secondments for 6 months to Grimsby and places, exciting places like that. Nothing against Grimsby. I had a lovely time. But it just didn't fit with bringing up 2 teenage lads at the time. So I decided to set up my own firm. Well, I went somewhere first, and we didn't meet eye to eye, let's say. I had ideas and aspirations to embrace women in business into the business. And they didn't like that. And they said women in business would never take off. So I resigned and set up next door. They said, you won't last 3 months. I went on for 8 years until I fell out of love with the business. I
Love
think
it.
when you get to a point where you get out of bed in the morning and you don't enjoy what you're doing, it's a message that you've got the power within you to change it. And I always say that if I get out of bed and don't like what I'm doing, I change it, because we're only here once. Why
Yeah.
do something you don't love? And fate took a step in, and I broke my ankle. It gave me the reflection space. It gave me the time. And I set up the current business, which celebrated its 10th business birthday.
Oh, I love business birthdays. And what does that business help people with?
So basically, it started off as a one-off awards event. I was sick of going to awards and always being the bridesmaid, never the bride. And I felt as if it was all about the winners and not
Mm.
about the experience. You get shoved a brown envelope with a certificate in it, and that was your lot for entering or being a finalist. And it was more about the bums on seats. And I wanted to change that. And it was always a line of black penguin suits. There was only the odd woman on a stage. And I think it really got to me when I went to one event and I was a finalist, and I looked again and there was one woman on the stage. And I went to the organizer and I said, what do women have to do to get on the stage and to win these awards? And he said, well, they didn't impress the judges. I said, well, the judges were all male panels. I said, what do we have to do to impress you? And he said there was one woman on the stage. I said, yeah, but she's the wife of somebody that was presented with an award, And I just went away from that really frustrated. And I think the ankle break, and I formed a plan. I got a plan. I'm innovative. I write my ideas down, and I just felt that there was a gap there at the time for women in business to recognize their achievements and celebrate them in a way that made them feel a part of the experience. So every one of my entrants in the room gets their moment on stage because they deserve it.
That
And
is
so I
amazing.
created the awards, which celebrated its 10th anniversary in 2025. And then I started the Solopreneur Awards 7 years ago because I felt I needed to do something for women who were doing it all alone.
Yeah.
And then people started asking me to create things. And it wasn't until the pandemic that I created my membership, which was an online academy, which is still going 6 years later. And it's evolved from there. And then I started the speaker training, and that has just gone from strength to strength. And then I create the opportunities on my stages for the women to have a go, just
Yeah.
get started, and things snowball from there.
Yeah. How important do you think speaking is for business owners?
We speak every day. We have conversations every day. We go networking. We come on podcasts. We enter into conversations. We have conversations with potential clients. It's all speaking. And I think what I found when I was a solicitor and they used to send me my next trainee and they'd come fresh from university or postgrad, they'd sit down and I'd say, answer the phone for me. And the first thing they'd say to me is, "Oh, what do I say?" And we're not taught how to communicate during school,
Mm.
during university. We're taught academically, but
Yeah.
quite often we're not taught the soft skills of communication, and they are vital. If you can't communicate at any level, then you're going to come unstuck somewhere along the line. And a valuable piece of information and advice I was given on my first day as a solicitor from one of the senior partners, he said, it doesn't matter whether you're speaking to the senior partner or the cleaner, everyone deserves the same amount of respect.
Mhm.
And we need to be able to communicate at all levels. And I'm a big believer in that.
Yeah. So that's what you help people with.
Yeah, yeah.
Amazing. And what do you think people struggle with the most that you can help them with?
It's fear and confidence. It's
Mm.
barriers, imposter syndrome. Although I don't like the term, we sabotage ourselves, and we believe more often than not, mainly women, that we haven't got a voice, that we aren't good enough, that nobody wants to listen to us, and that we haven't got a story to share. So many of my clients say to me, "But I've got nothing to share. I haven't got a story." Everyone's got a story. And when you're building a personal brand or you're trying to be visible, one of the key things that you want to have is your story. And that's where we start. When I work with a client, we start by unearthing their story. And what you might feel isn't a story will
Mm.
make somebody else go, "Oh, wow, I'm so inspired." And that's
Yeah.
the nuggets.
Yeah. So do you think it's about being relatable and for people being able to connect with you?
I think it is, but I always go into a room and when I'm speaking on stages, I always imagine that I'm speaking to just one person, like we're chatting today. You don't know how many other people will resonate with what you say, but if I can impact or impress upon one person to make them walk out that room feeling high, and not high in that sense, but feeling good about themselves
Mm.
and feeling if she can do it, I can do it. That's job done to me. So it's that I'd say to people, take the pressure off and just imagine you're having a conversation with one person wherever you are. It takes the pressure off you, and also you never know where your story will land and who it will impact.
I think that is amazing advice because then it takes it away from you and the nerves of talking to all these hundreds of people to actually thinking, what can I help this person with? What can I actually deliver that could make that impact to someone?
Yeah, and it's just really listening as well. We were given two ears for a reason,
Yeah.
listening, and it's listening to people and seeing what their people are very they put themselves down naturally. If you walk into a room and somebody says, "I love your dress," you say, "Oh, this old thing, just got it out the back of the wardrobe." We naturally
Mm.
put ourselves down, and I think we do when we're sharing our stories. When people enter my awards and it asks them to list their achievements, and they say, "But I haven't achieved anything." Well, you started a business. That's a huge achievement. You got out of bed this morning. It
Yeah.
those little things that you might think are everyday things, somebody else will go, "Wow."
Yes, definitely. You said something earlier about we should get out of bed and be excited. I don't want to be working in this job that drains me every day. And you said, if I don't like it, I'll change.
Yeah.
And some people, that is quite scary. I personally love a pivot. I've done it a few times. I've done loads of different things. I love it when I see someone in my network saying, oh my God, I'm doing this now and I'm so excited about it. And I think people think that other people are going to think, well, why is she doing that? What happened to the old thing? Has she failed at that? What's going on? So, what would you say to that?
I think it's about, obviously, I didn't just jump out of bed and start this business. I broke my ankle and it gifted me that time for reflection. And I build that reflection now constantly into my 90-day plan. So I have a mid 90-day reflection and an end of 90-day reflection.
Mm.
And I'm able to tweak things so that I'm living my purpose every day. I'm a huge fan of Ikigai, Japanese concept. You'll never, it's about living your being, living your purpose, and it helps longevity as well. So people don't retire; they just evolve.
Mm.
As long as you get out of bed and you're living your purpose and fulfilling your passion and you're delivering something that the world needs and you can be paid for, you'll never work another day in your life.
Yes.
And that's how I view things. So whilst I'm doing my reflection, I'm thinking, I don't really like that. Right. That's going to have to go. I'll revisit that again at the end of my 90 days. If it still doesn't feel right, that's the time to let that go. And sometimes you let go things that maybe are profitable, but actually you don't enjoy them. And I've learned to do that because sometimes, even though something might be profitable and we're doing it day in, day out, if we haven't got the passion and the energy, it will start to show through and we struggle then to sell it to our audience. So I'm a big believer in following your passion, finding that sweet spot, that ikigai, and living that every day.
That's amazing. And it's about what the world needs, right? It's like
Yeah,
what we're actually delivering and impacting people's lives as well,
yeah,
which
yeah.
is yeah. What challenges have you had in your business? What have your biggest obstacles been?
Gosh, my first business, after 3 months, I ran out of cash. I didn't know what cash flow was. So I learned that. I learned all my business lessons during my first business, and I don't call them failures. I call them learning curves. Employing staff, um, employing rogue staff, having to dismiss staff,
Mm.
all those sorts of things. And as an employment lawyer, that was, I knew the process, but going through it yourself in your own business is very different. So I made all the mistakes in the first business, and sometimes I do have challenges. I have challenges where I'm as I say, that last year I realised I wasn't really enjoying what I was delivering at that time, so I've let some things go, which has naturally created space for new things to come into my world. So it's yeah, I tend to work through on that premise that I need to be doing what I love, to avoid the challenges really. And there's always going to be challenges in business. I don't really call them challenges. I call them little bottlenecks. And you just unclear the bottleneck and carry on.
I love this though, Sandra, because a lot of people, I think the cash flow thing it hits every single business owner in the first year or two,
Yeah.
because you can't run a business without spending money and investing, whether it's marketing or staff or something else. So everyone definitely has that wobble. And I
Yeah.
think we need to talk more about it because I definitely felt like a failure when that happened to me. And it was just through talking to other business owners and they all went, yeah, totally normal. Yeah, it's happened to me. So the cash flow thing, definitely. But where did you get this attitude of, it's a wobble, we'll try something different, we'll follow our heart, we'll do what makes us happy? Because a lot of people would just be absolutely terrified when challenges come up or to park something that's really profitable and to go to something else. So it sounds like you've got a big sort of abundance mindset of it's going to work out. I have faith, I have confidence. Where has that come from?
I think it came from my mother. My mother was very controlling. She's still alive, by the way, batty as anything in a care home. She's 95 this year. She's from good stock. She's Italian. And because she's Italian and was brought up during her childhood, was during the early childhood, during the Second World War. So she was obviously Italy, were not on the right side to start with. Her father, her brothers were sent to internment camps. She was spat on in the street. She had to grow up to be very strong and very resilient. And she was one of eight.
Mm.
And there was a lot of competition in the family. And I think she always instilled in me a sense of, don't worry, if it goes wrong, you can try something else, or if I fall over, brush yourself down, get up, tomorrow's another day. And it was always that mentality. And I think that stuck with me. And she told me from a very young age, she says, you can be anything you want to be. And I believed her. So there was a very, an ethic built in me. Ironically, she was a glass half empty person, but my
Mm.
dad was the positive person in the family, and I had a happy childhood. We didn't have a lot of money, but I had a happy childhood, but I never forgot that, and I think the idea is we're only here once, why not try something? Because it what is it? Richard Branson said he had 7 failed businesses before he
Yes.
started with Virgin, so, yeah.
Yeah. I love Richard Branson's books. But yeah, it sounds like it's a bit of a mix of nature and nurture with you. Yeah, and that's what you
Absolutely,
help
yeah.
women with now.
And I am a determined person. I think that came through when I went for my interview for the training contract for one of the biggest firms in the world, and I got nothing to lose. That failure was not an option for me. I needed that training contract. I needed to get on the legal ladder. And I remember during my interview, they said, "You're a very determined woman, aren't you?" And I went, "Well, yeah, because failure is just not an option for me." And I think if you go in with that mindset, failure's not an option, but actually every failure is a learning curve. Everything I've got all business owners try something and it doesn't work out. You tweak it, you go again. And if it doesn't work, you try something else. I think a lot of people fear that. I think a lot of people fear trying something. What will people say? It
Yeah.
doesn't matter as long as you keep building the story behind it and that what you've lessons learned, speak after the event. So you're always sharing, this is what my challenge was. This is what went wrong. But actually, this is what I did, and this is how I've come out of it, and this is what I've learned. If you can share the learnings from an experience, then you're helping people as well.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. So what does this year look like for you? What have you got planned?
This year, so I've got my awards will happen anyway. I have 2 awards a year. The Woman Who Achieves Awards, which take place every May, and then the Solopreneur Awards, the Woman Who Solopreneur Awards every October. Um, still got my membership, which I love. I'm creating summits, I'm creating stages, I'm creating events and experiences for people to work with me. So, and lots of holidays. I always put my holidays in the diary first. I love the sunshine. I was born to hibernate through the winter months or be somewhere warm. I think that's my Italian blood.
Yeah.
So yeah, lots of holidays. They go in the diary first. And just having my weekends free. I used to give so much of myself at weekends, and I'm really enjoying my free weekends at the moment.
Amazing. And where are you traveling to this year?
This year, I'm traveling to Miami, to the US, and I'm going to go on a Caribbean cruise. I've never been on a Caribbean cruise, and I'm going to South Africa later in the year. My heart is in Italy, so no doubt there will be lots of trips to Italy, and I'm hoping to actually buy a place over there. So I've got a bolt hole.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, doing more. I want to impact 1,000 women in business this year. That's my ultimate goal, and I seem to manage to do that every year. And I want to impact another 1,000 this year.
Amazing. So if anyone listening is interested in the awards and becoming part of it, what should they do? How do they become part of
Every Everything is on the Woman Who website, and that's Woman Who because it's all about the individual woman. Womanwho.co.uk. There's an awards page there. If they go on the awards page, they can find out all about the awards and the key dates, depending on what time of year it is. And I say it's the start of a journey. My awards are not about one day in the calendar year; they're about a journey and actually starting to improve your confidence, recognize your achievements, celebrate them. But I've created a community around that as well. So once people they walk in the door as on their own and they leave with friends for life.
I love that. Can I join in, please?
Absolutely. You can be
Okay,
my friend.
I will get the link from you and I'll put it on this podcast so that people can follow
Yeah.
the link. So that's amazing. So thank you so much for joining me, Sandra. Your energy is amazing. I love everything about you. And I think I'm seeing you in a couple of weeks for a retreat, aren't I?
Yeah, absolutely. Looking
Yeah,
forward to it and
that'll be
spending
really
more
good
quality
fun.
time with people. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much. I'll put all the links in below the podcast if anyone wants to follow you. And we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.